Praise the Lord and good morning, everybody. Welcome to another Good Morning Grief devotion. We are so glad and so happy to have you all here today as we dare to prepare to dive into another Good Morning Grief devotion. This is the daily grief devotional that is strategically designed to help you to navigate through your grief one day at a time. What is grief? I'm so glad you asked, y'all. Grief, my brothers and sisters, it is the natural and normal response to loss, change, and transition that results in the expressions of feelings and emotions. Grief is what you feel on the inside. Mourning is how you express it on the outside. Therefore, we don't suppress it, but we express it. We don't ignore it, but we explore it. We don't conceal it, but we reveal it. We don't lock it up, but we let it out. And that's why we shout, "Good morning," because morning is a good thing. And I'm so glad to have each and every one of you here on today. We are grateful for this Tuesday, January the 30th. Y'all, January is almost over. Can you believe it? We are 1 month down in the year of 2024, and I hope you are ready and prepared for more. So we're excited to have this opportunity. If you are new here, just to let you know, this is our second year doing a daily grief devotion. That's right. Every single day, we gather together as a virtual community and as a village, and we help people to navigate through loss, change, and transition. The primary focus is death, but also we have come to know and understand as we have cultivated a greater awareness of grief, that grief is not just, it doesn't just pertain to death, but it pertains to any loss, change, or transition that you navigate through. So as you experience in your life, if you go through any loss, any change, any transition of any kind, the reality is you are more than likely grieving. This is what I say. Everybody is grieving. You just don't know it. Grief is what you feel. Mourning is what you reveal. Everybody is grieving. We just don't know it because everybody has and or currently is experiencing loss, change, or transition in some area of your life. And because of the loss, change, or transition, you feel something about it, but we don't always reveal. We can't always put a finger on it. We can't always pinpoint exactly or articulate like what's going on. Yeah, 9 times out of 10 is grief, right? So we are here to help you to navigate through this journey. Each and every day we get together at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time just to give you some tools, tips, techniques, and takeaways as we tackle the topic of grief, and we try to handle it from many different areas, right? And so thank you for joining us. Thank you for being a part of this grief community. If you got questions, you can drop them in the chat. We don't hold you long. We just want to give you a grief nugget, a devotional nugget that will hopefully and prayerfully in some type of way speak to your situation, right? So thank you for allowing me to be part of your team. My name is Pastor Corey Allen Duncan Sr. I am the senior pastor of the City of Hope Community Church located in the great city of Indianapolis, Indiana, the virtual pastor of Hope Nation that encompasses people all across this country that just rock with our ministry. And I'm also um, I'm your unsolicited 2024 grief coach. That's right. You didn't ask me to be your grief coach, but I'm going to be it anyway. And so I'm excited, y'all. I'm excited. After the pandemic, I noticed a lot of my congregation was struggling with grief. I began to get more awareness myself regarding grief and went and got me a grief certification. I'm currently working on my doctoral project in school, and my doctoral project is rooted in grief as well. It's utilizing spiritual disciplines to help people who have experienced grief, people who have had what I call a faith quake. We know an earthquake, right? Earthquake shakes everything up. People who have gone through a faith quake in their life where you've experienced a situation or circumstance that have just shaken your faith, right? So we help, and through grief, right? We help you to through spiritual disciplines, kind of help you to put some of the pieces of the puzzle together to help you to navigate through your grief, to help you to emerge right from that through the power of God. And so I'm super duper excited about it. Thank you for this opportunity. Thank you for allowing me to be a part of your team as you navigate through everything that you are going through. Without further ado, y'all, let's jump into our lesson for today. Today is day 30. We're going to talk about I'm careful with love. I am careful with love. One thing grief will help you to understand is to be careful with love. Grief brings about awareness. Whenever you go through loss, change, or transition, it really heightens and makes you more aware of what really matters most and who's around you and what's around you and how to navigate through situations and circumstances that are still present. And one thing we're going to talk about today briefly is I am careful with love. Let's talk about it. My grief has made me more aware of actively and generously loving the people who are still present in my life. As I said before, grief will make you more aware. Lose something, it makes you more aware of not only what you had, but also of what you still have, right? Go through some type of loss, go through some type of change, go through some type of transition, and it makes you aware, once again, not only what you had, right? But now it makes you more aware of what you still have. And grief has made me more aware, here it is, of actively and generously loving the people who are still present in my life. That word actively is so important, right? Because we want to be proactive and not reactive, right? And so a lot of times grief makes us to be reactive because now we're more aware, but you want to be proactive moving forward and being intentional and strategic about the relationships that you still have, right? So you want to actively and generously, right? Come on, we want to Anita Baker for Jesus. We want to be able to give the best that we have with the loved ones that still remain. So your grief makes you more aware, right? And now you put yourself in a position where you can actively and generously love the people who are still present and the people who still remain in your life, right? And don't allow, this is the thing, we got to be consistent because oftentimes we have this experience, we have funerals, we have all of these things, and there's this heightened awareness, and everybody, we come together and we say, we only come together for funeral. We got to love one another. We got to do better. We say that we got to do better. And then we go back to our own individual lives and we default to our same habits, right? We default to the we default to our same settings, and we put ourselves in a position to where we don't follow through on the promises that we made ourselves when our awareness was heightened during that season or that time, funeral and all that stuff. So we have to really follow through on making sure that we no longer take for granted those who are in our life, that we no longer are passive or we lack generosity when it comes to loving those that remain. So we want to be proactive and we want to be generous and loving those who are still present. When I care about someone, I tell them so and I treat them lovingly. We talked about yesterday how, the last time may be the last time, right? And when you truly love somebody, you got to tell somebody, right? When you truly love somebody, you got to show it, right? We have to put ourselves in a position because you never know. The last time may be the last time. And the last thing you want is another set of regrets of things you should have said but didn't say, things you should have did but didn't do, things that should have happened but didn't happen because we failed to live in the moment and we failed to express, right, how we feel about those that remain. So when I care about someone, I tell them so and I treat them lovingly. I'm also very careful not to express myself unkindly because words matter and they have lasting effects. You have to be aware. My sister passed in 1999, and when she passed, I'm so glad we were at peace, right? We were not at odds with one another. I had not expressed myself unkindly towards her, whether it was a moment or a mindset, and vice versa. She had not expressed herself unkindly towards me, right? Whether it was a moment or whether it was a mindset. And so there was a level of peace that came with that. Same thing with my father. My father transitioned. The last conversation we had, he was kind of getting on me a little bit, telling me some stuff that I needed to do that I didn't want to hear at the moment, right? Which probably made me even rushed off the phone faster. Like, all right, pops, I get it. Yeah. Oh my God, bye. Right. But we were not unkind with one another, right? And I think that's so very important to understand. I think it was my son or my daughter when they were in. It may have been kindergarten or first grade or something. The teacher did a illustration. I think they did it as well, where they had a paper plate and they had toothpicks, and they had toothpaste, and so they had the toothpaste and they squeezed it out, squeezed it out. I don't know what the proper word is on the paper plate, and then they had to put it back in. They had to take the toothpicks or whatever they had to try to put the toothpaste back in. And all of them found it was nearly impossible. It was hard to do. It was so difficult for them to put the toothpaste back in the tube after it had been pushed out. And the point that the teacher was trying to make or tell them is that this toothpaste is like words, and the tube is like your mouth, and the toothpaste is like words. And when you release, when you push these words out, right, it's hard to take them back. It's hard to put them back in. They're already out there, right? So even when it comes to our day-to-day relationships, when we say things and we do things, right, especially with the people we love, y'all, it can be hard to push that back. It can be hard to try to take that back. It can be hard to try to rewind, try to backtrack, and try to do all that stuff. So you have to be intentional. You have to be intentional, even in this season of grief, right? You have to be intentional about not expressing yourself in an unkind manner, right? Because words matter and words have lasting effects. And we know that grief, you're going through stuff and you feel some type of way. Sometimes you got to remove yourself from situations. Sometimes I'm not even going to go over there because I'm not in the headspace. And I want to be mindful of what I say. I want to be mindful of how I articulate. And sometimes it might be a season just for me, just to chill out for a minute, right? I don't want nobody to flip the wrong button or to turn me up or to, you know what I'm saying? And so I want to be mindful of what I say, especially with people that I love. And so I want to express myself in a kind and an articulate way, right? Because words matter and they have lasting effects. So when I care about someone, I tell them so and I treat them lovingly. I'm also very careful not to express myself unkindly because words matter and they what? They have lasting effects. The poet Khalil Gibran wisely wrote, between what is said and not meant, and what is meant and not said, most of love is lost. Y'all hear that? Between what is said and not meant. I said it, but I did not mean it, right? How many of y'all have ever done that or been in position to where someone, it was done to you? They said something, but they said they did not mean it. Or you said something and you really did not mean it. He says between what is said and not meant and what is meant and not said, right? I meant to tell you I love you. I meant to show you. I meant to do this, but I never said it. I meant to tell you I was sorry, but I never said it, right? I love it. He says between what is said and not meant and what is meant and not said, most of love is lost. Love gets lost in between those two transactions and interactions. I no longer want to be I no longer want to be someone who loses a tiny, precious drops of love. I no longer want to be someone who loses any tiny, precious drops of love. We don't want to lose any tiny, precious drops of love. We need every drip and every drop, right, to go to its intended target. We want to make sure we put ourselves in a position, right, because this grief makes us aware. And because we understand, we learn the lessons from the loss that we've already had, we want to make sure we don't put ourselves in that same position. I no longer want to be someone who loses any tiny, precious drops of love. Here's the final reflection, y'all. Love is truth. Hate and other unkind feelings are ego. Love is truth, right? But hate and any other unkind feelings, they stem from our ego. We want to put ourselves in a position where we love strategically and intentionally. Today is day 30, y'all. I'm careful with love. I'm careful with love. We want to make sure that we are navigating through those relationships that still remain in a special, strategic, and intentional way. I heard somebody say, strengthen what remains, right? Strengthen what remains for that which still remains in our life. We want to put ourselves in a position to where we can strengthen that and we can continue to love those who are still in our life. Holla at your boy one time for the one time. Questions, comments, if you got them. Questions, comments, if you got them. Questions, comments, if you got them. We are talking and helping you to navigate through grief. It could be about the lesson. It could be about anything, right? It could be about anything that pertains to grief, anything that pertains to mourning, anything that pertains to loss, change, and or transition. Questions or comments that you may have. My brother's here, first time listening. I love you. He's a pastor in Houston, Texas. Pastors grieve to. Oh, let me tell you something about pastors grieving. Thank you, Pilar. Welcome, brother. Is it Achilles? Achilles Patrick, welcome. Thank you for joining us. When you say pastors grieve too, let me tell you something. Let me tell you something. Not only do pastors grieve, but there is we lack safe places and safe spaces where we can articulate what we're going through and what we're dealing with, right? And so absolutely pastors grieve, and we deal with a lot of loss, change, and transition, not just physical in the sense of death, but just in pastoring, period, right? And so thank you for joining us, sir. I appreciate it. Hope and pray you were blessed. Absolutely. A lot of grief, a lot of things that we deal with. You are so very welcome, Miss Felicia Henderson. God bless you. I love it. We love our father and brother and have our own personal griefs. Absolutely. Yeah, you said his name right. Thank you. Yeah, we have our own personal griefs, right? And so that's how we try to navigate through this thing the best way we can. And it can be a lot, right? It can be a lot, but we have to find safe places and safe spaces where we can just not just grieve, but mourn. I say all the time, grief is what you feel, mourning is what you reveal, right? So a lot of times people grieve, but they don't mourn. Your grief has to turn into mourning, right? Grief is what you feel, mourning is what you reveal. Grief is what you feel on the inside of you. Mourning is how you express it outside of you. One is internal, the other is external. So we have to find places where we do not suppress, but we do what? We address and we express the very thing that we're going through. You have to learn how to address and express. I say it all the time, you got to learn how to acknowledge it. You got to sit in it. You got to name it and you got to express it, right? Whatever you're feeling, whatever you're dealing with, you got to acknowledge it. You got to sit in it. You got to name it and you have to express it. That's the only way you'll navigate through this season of grief. The only way through is through. Strengthen what remains. Absolutely. We have to strengthen what remains. Come on. Any other questions or comments? Any other questions or comments? I do want to encourage y'all. Once again, this is our second year going through this. So we have over 300, over 300 grief devotionals, 365 plus 30. So that's 395. Yep, 395. So there are 395 grief devotions on our YouTube channel. If you want to go back, you can watch any of them, right? Any of the lessons. These are sessions, devotions, coaching and counseling sessions that are free, right? You ain't got to pay for these. You can just go and watch and listen and binge watch, whatever the case may be, to kind of help you to navigate through your journey. One of our mottos is small steps lead to great distances, right? So small steps will definitely lead to great distances if you put yourself in a position to mourn meaningfully. We weren't raised learning about grief, so men particularly suppress. Absolutely, we do. Men suppress. Not only is there a lack of awareness, but once again, there's a lack of safe places and safe spaces for people in general, but especially men to be able to articulate themselves, right? And so all we do is suppress, right? The old school used to say, well, go on this house, stay in this house. They didn't want you telling nobody nothing. So we grew up with this mentality and we end up suffering in silence because there's so much we want to say. There's so much we need to unpack. There's so much that we need to articulate, but we fail to do so, right? And we still feel it, but we don't reveal it. And so that suppression, man, it leads to sickness, it leads to disease, it leads to all of these other things taking place in our body internally because we're not utilizing our release valves properly to express and articulate what we're dealing with and what we're going through. Yep, grief must turn into mourning. Y'all, there's the distinction between grief and mourning. Two different things. Once again, grief is internal. Mourning must be external, right? So mourning requires motion. I say it every day inside our devotion. Grief is what you feel on the inside. Mourning is what you express on the outside. Therefore, we don't suppress it, but we express it. We don't ignore it, but we explore it. We don't conceal it, but we reveal it. We don't lock it up, but we let it out. And what happens is a lot of people grieve, but they don't mourn, right? You feel, but you don't reveal. And when you feel, but you don't reveal, you end up staying stuck, stalled, and stagnant in grief. And there is no mourning because there is no movement. There has to be mourning. You have to express outside of you what you're feeling on the inside of you. Otherwise, you're going to be stuck, right? You're going to be stuck like Chuck. And you don't want to be stuck like Chuck. A lot of times men do not even acknowledge their own emotions within themselves. And this is people in general, but especially men. And a lot of times that was nurtured in us growing up, right? We were told men don't cry, right? Shut up crying. You a big boy. Be a man. Stop crying. You a big boy. Big boys don't cry, right? That's what was nurtured in us, and it was nurtured wrong. That's wrong. That's the furthest thing from the truth, right? That we too have to put ourselves in places where we can articulate how we feel, right? Where we can show our emotion, where we acknowledge our emotions, right? Where we acknowledge our emotion. You got to acknowledge it, right? First and foremost, that's what they do in Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm an alcoholic. You got to acknowledge this is where you are, right? And so even when it comes to grief, whether it's men or women, it's acknowledging, sitting in it, naming it, and expressing it, right? You have to acknowledge what you're feeling, acknowledge your emotions, right? Sit in it, name it, and then express it outside of yourself. It is of the utmost importance. But pastor, it's not often a safe space to do so as a man. So yeah, absolutely. You have to find safe places and safe spaces, right? You have to find safe places and safe spaces, whether it's a coach, whether it's a counselor, whether it's a therapist, whether it's a pastor, whatever the case may be, whether it's your spouse or you got a friend, right? Whether you got a friend, I tell you, my barber, I'm a barber by trade, and my barber chair was my first pulpit. Before I got in the pulpit, my barber chair was my first pulpit, right? And it was my first pulpit because, barbershop is a black man's country club. And so many of my clients, just because the nature of my character, my personality, and who I was, and I started preaching at 19. So many of my clients, man, that was their safe place, right? There's stuff that I'll take to the grave that I know about clients, people, this, that, and the other, that I would never, compromise what they shared, what they shared with me. That was their safe place. I need to holler at Rev. I need to holler at Rev. I need to holler. Hey man, hey, we'll sit there and think about it. That's a 30-minute session, right? A 30-minute session that they would begin to talk about issues, problems, challenges, relationship, children, life in general, period, right? It was even to the point to where I had other customers that would call, and I wasn't a barber, but they would call to holler at me. Y'all need to holler at you about something. I see you. I see how you move. I see this, that, and the other. Man, pretty solid dude. I just need to rap to you, right? And so you got to find safe places and safe spaces. A counselor, a therapist. Yeah, I got coaches, right? I got counselors. I've had counselors. I've been in therapy. I got people I talk to that services different aspects of my being to help me to be the best version of myself. I've had people, right, that I've went to talk to, like, yeah, this is a safe space where I can let this out, right? Because there's something I want to say. There's something I've been wanting to say. There's something I need to get off my chest. There's something that I need to articulate. And as a man and as a pastor, I'm just very careful. I can't talk to everybody, but I did find somebody, right, that I could articulate this to because I needed some help. I need some help, right? And so it is important that you find safe places, safe spaces, therapist, counselor, coach, pastor, friend, confidant, whatever the case may be, grief group, somewhere that you can be vulnerable enough to articulate what you are feeling on the inside, right? This is what I find out. This happens, man, really 70, 80% of the time. People that come into office, most of them just need to get it off their chest. Most of them just need a safe place where they can just release everything they think and everything they feel. And for a lot of people, when they do that, oh, they be like, man, I feel so much better. That's the common thing. Oh my God, I feel so much. And of course, they get a little guidance, they get a little direction, right? They get wisdom, they get advice. But the majority of it's the release. The release brings about relief, right? Remember that the release brings about relief. Let's just look at this in a practical sense, right? Just look at physically. You ever had every single day, right? Everybody goes to the what? The bathroom, right? Come on. I got to break it all the way down for you. How many of y'all can say, yo, that release brings about what? Relief, right? If you can understand that from a physical sense, I need you to understand it as it relates to grief, as it relates to the burdens you are carrying, the things you have not unpacked. That release, it brings about a relief. And so many people, y'all, about 80, 90% really, just having the opportunity to release. Oh, I feel so much better. Oh, I feel, because it's pent up on the inside, right? And they just need to get it out. They just need a safe space, somebody that's not going to weaponize their vulnerability, somebody that is not going to judge them, somebody that is not going to side eye them, but somebody who will just simply listen, right? And they know it's safe here. That release brings about relief. And so you have to find safe places and safe spaces where you can release. And the worst thing people around us could do is laugh or belittle a man that happens to cry in front of us. So women have to educate themselves too. Absolutely, right? Absolutely. Think about it. We do it all the time, even in public. When Tyrese was having them issues with his baby mama, and he's like, "What more do you want from me?" Right? This man was having a meltdown, a breakdown, and what do? We laughed. We made fun of him. He became a meme. Right? We began to mock. What more do you want from me? What is that doing? Right? A man that was vulnerable enough to publicly articulate how he felt. And what do? We weaponize it. We make fun of it. We laugh, right? And so that's important. Brother Patrick says this is why it's important for pastors to have a partner in the ministry to serve as each other's safe space medium. 1,000% correct. 1,000% correct. It is absolutely important to have partners, right? Safe places, safe spaces. Because a lot of times, who better understands what you're dealing with than another pastor? It's the same issues and challenges and problems that come along with it. And when you have somebody that can identify, that's why even in the space of grief, a lot of times a parent who's lost a child can connect with another parent who's lost a child. Even though there's some commonalities, there's also some differences, right? Because you may be in the same storm, but two different boats, but there is a commonality that is shared, right? Because nobody understands what losing a child is like than somebody else who's lost a child. Or somebody who's lost a parent can connect and identify with somebody else who's lost a parent. Because who better understands what that is like? Even though there's some differences, there are some similarities, right? And so that becomes so very important, connecting with other people with similar, in a similar situation that can really help to empathize and sympathize with the struggle. Yes, release brings about relief. I'm trying to tell you. It's so very important. It's so very important. Any other questions or comments? I thank y'all for joining us today. This is 30 minutes. We usually only hold like 10, 15 minutes, and I ain't tripping. I just want to avail myself, to make sure that we have this safe place to even articulate on here. And even this medium right here, even this opportunity right here, right? It's part of the team. It's part of the village. It's having an outlet, right? Even though you may not be talking, you are typing, but you get a chance to ask questions. You get a chance to connect with other people. You get a chance to get out of you what's on the inside of you. And so that's what I love about Good Mourning, because it does that. Release brings about relief. Safe spaces are of the utmost importance, period. And everybody got to have one. Everybody got to get one. Everybody needs one. You have to have safe spaces and places where you can grieve and mourn in a meaningful manner. And so, absolutely. Thank y'all so very much for joining us on today. Yo, look, we are here every single day. When I say every single day, this is year number 2. Go back, y'all. Go back. Go back to YouTube. Corey Duncan Sr. Go back. You'll see it, right? Watch all of the good mornings. Y'all can binge watch them like they a Netflix show or something, right? Get it in your heart, get it in mind, get it in your spirit every single day. We're not new to this work. We true to this work. And we really want to partner with you and help you to navigate through your grief and what you're going through and what you're dealing with. And so be mindful of that. Today is day 30. We are excited about all God is doing. We're praying for you. Please know and understand that small steps lead to great distances, and continue, y'all, to grieve well so that you can be well. We love you with the love of the Lord. We'll see you tomorrow, same time, same place. Y'all have a terrific Tuesday in Jesus' name. Let's go.